Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier. Ministers of Agriculture in the Eastern Caribbean working to transform the agriculture sector, and they have taken some big decisions at the recent Council of Ministers of Agriculture meeting, which took place in St. Vincent at the end of August. Hinging on all of this is the Food and Agriculture Systems Transformation Strategy, also known as FAST, and it has several varying components to it. Their target is to have exports from the Caribbean, from the Eastern Caribbean, reach 1980s levels, the good old days of Wibdeco and Windfresh, when we were exporting lots, and they're looking to expand the market beyond the United States and beyond Canada and the traditional export markets that we are accustomed to. They're also launching something called the Food and Nutrition Security Council within all of that to push the agenda. Joining me on the program now is Roland. He is the Minister of Agriculture in Dominica. He's also the minister responsible for the green and the blue economy, and he's the chairman of the Council of Ministers on Agriculture for the Eastern Caribbean. Welcome to the program, Minister.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me. It's my pleasure being here this morning.
Well, you know, I looked at the agenda, the plan for going forward, and I found it, because of where we are and because of all the knocks and the hits we have taken, quite ambitious. The food and agriculture systems transformation, it all seems to hinge on that. What exactly is that?
Critical, I mean, the core of that FAST strategy is to ensure food and nutrition security in the OECS. Yeah? And we'll talk of exports a bit later. But the essential thing is ensure that the people of the OECS have secured food and nutrition. However, we take agriculture as a business, so we have to look at our export potential as well. So the FAST strategy basically aligns the OECS agriculture to ensure that we increase our exports by 3 or 4 fundamental pillars, because there are issues that we have to address in order to make sure that we can expand and increase our exports. You know, so the issue of youth in agriculture is one of the key aspects that we must discuss going forward. The issue of regional transportation to move our produce from one island to the other, and even extra regionally, is one of the issues that we have to discuss as well. And the issue of marketing. When I mean marketing, collective joint marketing in the days of Windfresh, with Deco, etc. What we're seeing is that the demand for agricultural produce from the OCS is huge, but independently, we cannot meet the market's demand.
Why is that?
Because one island in the OECS don't have the capacity to provide that kind of level of export that the US and the UK requires. So, for example, St. Lucia may have requests for commodities, but they're not able to meet everything. Just like Dominica, St. Vincent, Grenada, etc. So if collectively we can address these markets, that will be better for everybody in OCS. I'm saying that to say, we may not want to reinstitute a model like with Deco or Windfresh, but we have existing marketing boards in each of the island states. So we need more collaboration, we need more communication between them. So if, for example, we were to have an order in Dominica that we can't meet, we can call on neighbors in St. Vincent and Lucia, yo, can you help me fulfill that demand? So we're calling for greater coordination and collaboration within the marketing boards to ensure that we don't lose out. Because as we speak, we are losing out on a lot of market potential out there. And but meeting the markets is another issue that we have to address, because we can expand and do more to meet the market demands, particularly in some key commodities. But we need to do it as a collective.
And that is one of the questions that I had down to ask you, how as a collective, because we're 100,000 people on a good day, we were 111,000 people in Grenada. We certainly don't have the land space either to do the kind of mass production that's required. And so as a collective, how do we seek the opportunities together, because that's the only way it's going to work? And you talk about marketing. Are there any other areas where you're looking the collective benefiting each other instead of everyone going it alone, apart, separate from the marketing?
Definitely. So we need to identify the crops that we are strong in. We know that in the we know the islands in particular, St. Vincent, Grenada, Dominica, St. Lucia, we do root crops very well. We do bananas, we do plantain very well. So we need to share technology, we need to share information, we need to share expertise so that we can have a cadre of persons to advise the sector. And us as ministers, the way forward on that. So not only marketing together, but having various MOUs between the different islands, which we have started to share knowledge, to share planting material, to share expertise so that we can get it right. If you were to reference the good old banana days in the 80s, when we had yeast, for example, as one of the main buyers, banana was the only commodity we grew as a commercial crop in those days. But technically, so geese owned the entire value chain, which was advantage to geese. They own the farms, they own the agronomists, they own the processing facilities, they own the ships, and they also own the distributing centers in the UK and in Ireland. So that made it easier for them to really market the crops in the UK and Ireland. But now we have various players, which is a route that we want to encourage that we go into. We have different actors, and that's where we bring in the private sector to provide some support as well. So Geese doing it on his own, fine, very successful model, but we lost preferential treatment, so we lost that market. But for us now as Greenwood Islands, there's no model like this we can pattern on, so we need to collaborate, not just for marketing, as I said, but in shared knowledge, expertise, and crops. Like, for example, Dominica is doing very well in white potatoes. That's one of our main import substitution crop that we do, white potatoes. We grow it annually. And harvest period, we stop the importation of potatoes. My friend comrade Caesar from St. Vincent, Minister of Agriculture, he reached out. Minister, we want to introduce white potatoes in St. Vincent so we can have that same impact you have on the economy in Dominica. Fine. So we're going to do collective purchasing of the elite seeds in October. We're going to assist him with our technicians that are that by now over 40 years they're doing that. They're expert in growing white potatoes. So we're going to share knowledge and I have sensitivity too. Because we alone cannot sustain the market. Last year planting season, for the first time we exported $2 and the potential is huge. And I know St. Vincent and Grenada as well have signed MOU in similar field to share knowledge and expertise, not just knowledge, but even planting materials and stuff to ensure that we can do a crop particularly well. So not just marketing, but we can collaborate in other areas.
No, Minister, we do not lack awareness. Yeah, we do not lack awareness in the Caribbean and in the Eastern Caribbean in particular, which is the focus of our discussion, on the need for cooperation and collaboration and our size disadvantage. And we've been talking a lot about cooperation, but it never has worked. What is it? And I know now we have a new young crop of people in governments, across the region. Is that going to be to our advantage? And also, what other advantages are we working with right now as we continue this very old conversation about the desperate need to work together? This is not new.
I think, and I can speak for the other ministers as well. I think this crop of agriculture ministers in the OECS, we can sense there's that political will to get it done. I think we are one of the most active councils of ministers in the OECS. I'm not boasting, but it's evidenced by the frequency that we meet, and the plans that we bring forward. In our last meeting in St. Vincent, we were given the opportunity, every minister, to present on the status of the sector in their respective countries and how we can dovetail our programs into the FAST, and of course how we can align our initiatives and how we can collaborate as different ministers of agriculture in the OECS. And that was very positive, and the meeting was successful, and we were in high spirits, and you could see that political will, and we were all mandated to go back to our capitals, to speak to our respective cabinets as to the way forward on that. So I think that's a plus for us, and I think that's a big difference, because if you were to have the best plan by the technicians and the OECS secretariat, and the political will is not there to have it implemented, we will not get anywhere. And I can confidently say with this group of ministers, our council, we are all singing from the same hymn sheet, and we are ready to implement the fast strategy.
Now, you also, there are some specific areas that you're diving deep into in the medium term, I suppose, out of the FAST strategy that you want to focus on to drive the agenda, transportation being one of them. I mean, we
Definitely.
can barely get around our own islands, which is ridiculous. Transportation, and you mentioned earlier youth in agriculture. The age of the Grenadian farmers, I think it's over 50 or 60 years or something like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so if we have no one to farm, agriculture will die. So talk to me about those particular areas that you're going to put the
Yes.
microscope
So
on.
so if you were to look at the youth in agriculture, just a matter of background, in 2003, I was a young extensionist then because I spent my first stint in the ministry as an agriculture extension officer. We launched what we called the National Association of Youth in Agriculture. I was one of the founders, and there it took off. What we saw at that time was the need to encourage youth participation in agriculture. In Dominica, our average age of the farmer is 65 years, and it's increasing. And there is a lack of interest from young persons to get involved in practical agriculture. We have a lot of scientists and agricultural businessmen, but the practical agriculture, we have issues with that. So we're trying to make the sector a bit sexy to attract young persons and putting plans and programs in place to create an incentive so that they can participate in agriculture. I can speak for Dominica. We relaunched that program when I became minister in on March 30th at the State House. And we are going to align it more to an agricultural entrepreneurship program rather than just practical agriculture. So what we're seeking is for young professionals, young persons to get involved in agriculture, but investing in the sector. So we can have all the markets and we don't have the energy behind it to produce the food, we will not get anywhere. So that's what we're seeing at OCS. We need to provide and develop programs with the accompanying incentives to ensure that we have youth participation in agriculture so that we can have a sustainable agriculture system going forward. And I think most of the islands have a youth chapter. In Grenada, you would know there's a youth in agriculture chapter. St. Lucia has one as well, St. Vincent, Dominica. So we're all aligned. And collectively, we're going to ensure that young persons are involved. One of the decisions we took as a ministry in Dominica is to ensure that all incentives, all programs, all assistance given to agriculture or to farmers in Dominica, minimum 50 plus 15% goes to person under 35 years, just to make sure that they are captured and they, and they're not losing out.
A
So that's
minimum
one of the
of
policies.
a minimum of
A minimum
15% in resources, whether it's financial or material or
of
technical
in
support.
material that's compulsory. Yes, technical support will be targeted to young persons.
That seems a bit low though. 15%.
Yeah, it's slow.
Given the
It's slow,
gravity
but
of the problem that we have to face
yes,
with this age thing, seems low.
yes, but we must start somewhere. I mean, minimum, we said minimum, but most time it will be over. But just to ensure that they are not losing out from the pie, we said minimum. But we have persons, let's say, above 45 in the early 40s, and they're pretty young. But we just using the UN or the global standard for youth, 35 and under. But I'm a farmer myself. I'm in my 40s, you know. But but persons would get incentive, but we using minimum as a benchmark of 15%. But obviously, most time will be over that, just to ensure that it doesn't lose out. Because, for example, if you would have, for example, 10 greenhouses to blend to farmers that are doing vegetables, most of the farmers would be, let's say, as I speak, would be about 40 that we're doing commercial farmers. So, but if we were to go only based on who are in it, we may disenfranchise the person under 35. You know, so just to ensure that they get, if we have to create one, but we make sure that the young persons will benefit. So it's in that light we put the minimum 15%.
We
But at
talk
most, be over. Yeah.
the conversation about making agriculture sexy for the young people is one we have here
Yeah.
in Grenada as well. Because when you think of the farmer is stereotyped. He's the guy in the old straw hat with the banana stain, the shirt, and the water boots and the
Mhm.
cutlass, right? This is the visual that we have. Believe it or not, I'm not sure if it's the same in Dominica. And young people now don't want that. They want to,
No, no.
except for the tie, they want to look fly. And they don't want to ride a donkey, although it's better for the environment, to go to the lands. They want a pickup. These things
Definitely,
call,
and
so the investment
and,
as
and I
well,
support
the
that too.
availability of funding. I don't know, I'm not hearing of millions of dollars just being put out there through our development banks and so that will make young people want to plant. They don't have time to sit in the hot sun and wait for a
No.
year and a half for the crops to start earning. They need a salary. They need to pay themselves while they are trying to do this. Are all of these things being considered? How
And I
easy are we
happy, yeah,
making it?
I'm happy you said that. That's why we need more private sector involvement in we meeting the outcomes of the fast. The commercial banks themselves, the agricultural development banks in the various sources member states need to have programs that would attract farmers. I know in Dominica, for example, we have last year we had a facility of over $20 million for entrepreneurs. We are not discriminating; it was open for everybody, so farmers could participate and get support from that. A very low interest rate, about 2.5 to 3% interest rate. So we have that facility for sure. But that remember that's the aid bank, that's the agricultural investment bank, which is basically government. But the commercial banks, like the would need to step up and provide that facility as well, because persons have the preference in which bank that they want to do business with. So that's where the conversation need to start. At policy level, we need to engage them to see what facility they can provide to young persons and farmers generally to invest in agriculture. We've for the past 2 years we've been hearing of a facility at Republic Bank of 100 million US dollars for agriculture. Um, our branch in Dominica have not heard anything about that locally, but on the regional front, I've been hearing about it. So we need more education, we need more marketing from bank and service was available, and they need to make it more attractive for farmers. You cannot give an agricultural loan to a farmer with the same interest rate that you're providing for a mortgage. So they need to make that stuff sexy. And I agree with you that we need to do more to encourage farmers, young persons, to invest and to earn a decent living and to do it as a business, like any other job. And that's what the first strategy is all about.
Okay, what about transportation? That's a big challenge as well. I'm seeing here, and I need to put my glasses on to see this. Some of the areas that you want to fast track for the next 3 years, I think, in private
Yeah.
sector, transport, logistics, trade, and climate resilient agriculture, which is a big one because there's a lot of money that you
Big
can
one.
draw down under that. There's
Yeah.
a lot of money the islands can draw down from
Yeah.
international facilities. But the IMF, I think, has something going on as well. So, yeah,
Yeah.
transportation, that's a thorn in our side.
Yeah, transportation is always it has been a hindrance for a while. Um, we do trade north of Dominica, so we do islands of St. Kitts and Martin, Antigua, way up to Total and African Islands. But that's working well. But as I try explaining at our last meeting in St. Vincent, there are market demands south of Dominica which we can meet, but the issues of transportation is limiting us. For example, we can provide a boatload of fresh produce to Barbados, but we have an issue. The boat owners would not run that line because when they go to Barbados, they come back empty. So they call that debt free. So that's where again the whole cooperation and collaboration with us to do in OECS needs to come in play. So if we have a reliable vessel, a few of them, it could be owned by the marketing board, and if we can have the private sector invest as well, which is my preferred option, um, that's more dependable. We can collectively transport and fulfill and meet the demand of every market. So we need that sea freight reliable through the region and then extra regionally at a reasonable cost as well, because the sea freight can be very expensive, and which at the end of the value chain makes your produce a bit expensive and put you out of business, so because you reduce your competitiveness with the other players in the market like Santo Domingo, Costa Rica, and the other persons and the other countries in Latin America. So we need reliable sea transport to move through the islands and do that collective marketing and distribution for fresh produce. But that's a major hindrance, and that's why in St. Vincent we brought in private sector players to have a discussion as to how they can assist investing in something like that. But that's very critical too, the sector and marketing of our produce for sure.
Any conversations happening along those lines that will gain traction and we can see something happening? Because the transportation issue, air transport in particular, we've been having conversations and looking for players in the market for however long. And, I can't go to Dominica in peace. I have to take multiple flights and probably
Nice to
sell
do
some
that.
assets to pay for the ticket. So how close are we to dealing with these things? Because
Yeah,
if
I
it
know
all
there are
comes
several
together,
strategies.
then fast can work. But we
Yeah,
always seem to be
yeah,
trying to catch up with little bits and pieces of what we need to do.
yeah. There are several strategies, but on paper, and
Yeah,
discussion,
we've accumulated a lot of white papers in the
I
Caribbean.
don't know why people, yeah, yeah, but as we speak, there's nothing really that we can announce as we speak, that make us happy. But these are the conversations that we've been having and trying to see how soon we can get that. We've been speaking to our local boat owners in Dominica as well. Um, a few years back, we've provided incentives so that they could enhance the conditions on the boat to make it more conducive for fresh produce, and we've done that. We've seen the increased number of vessels in our ports in Portsmouth in particular going off, capable of holding reefer containers because they're roll on roll of boats. So we have that in the private sector. It's just to get them organized and to provide the service. But sometimes it's another private investment. You're gonna dictate to them exactly what to do. So it's a conversation that's continuing, and we are hopeful that we'll break through on this. But in terms of numbers, I can speak for my country. We have the numbers. It's just sort of organized, and yeah, and get it right. Yeah.
Because I was going to suggest that the islands, particularly St. Kitts and Grenada and Dominica, who are doing so well in their CBI, use some CBI
Right.
funds to go into a PPP with a private sector, so that you have some say in how the thing is managed as well, because you have part ownership and you're going to a
Yeah,
public-private
I agree, but
partnership.
sometimes I agree totally,
There's
but sometimes
millions
you
in our
don't.
various transformation in our various CBI funds.
Yeah, yeah, but sometimes you don't want to seem that you're competing with the private sector. That's the issue. I mean, years I know our government announced years that we're going to procure two vessels, but when we look and we think and we strategize, there are private sector persons investing in the same vessel that we're going to procure. So you don't make it look like government is going to compete with the private sector. So that there's a very thin line. But if it comes to a point where we have to intervene, we will. But for now, I think there are enough vessels to satisfy the sea transport free from Dominica, and it's just to have them organized, as we speak. Because I know Saint Vincent and Grenada would have a few, but if we, as we call it the same, cooperate and collaborate and do it together, we can fill the gaps. We can. So it's a conversation that we need to have. But I agree with you. If it comes a time where we need to step in, we will get there. But for now, based on our assessment, I think there are enough private investors that can do that. Is to get them to do it, provide the
Yeah,
resources and
right,
incentives.
but they're private and they're going to look at the bottom line, and the
The bottom line,
cost
yes,
of
right,
production is a challenge that we have always had, whether it's
yeah,
manufacturing or agriculture or anything else. The cost of production is a challenge that we've had in being competitive. We have to import almost everything that we need. For the things that we
right.
want to produce in the region. That already
Mhm.
puts us at a price point higher than the countries that we wish to export. So we're importing agriculture products that are selling for less in our territories than what is
Mhm.
being produced here. You know,
Yeah, I agree totally. We can look at that on two angles. The one will be the raw material that you need for the sector and the inputs like the fertilizer and animal feed. And we've seen an exponential increase in the prices, well, due to the Ukraine-Russia war, that really exacerbated the rise in inputs. And of course, it contributed to the cost of the commodity on the shelf, if you understand. That's what. So we now have to think of how we're going to subsidize inputs to at least break even for now. We have a program, Dominica, which we're looking for them to do that. I'm not too sure if the other overseas member states will be in position to do that, but we have a World Bank funding program that we're going to ensure that we're going to subsidize the cost of feed. and so it can make it easier for lesser farmers. However, I think the main issue in terms of food security, as island states that provide and we have the right agro eco zones to produce vegetables and the land space, I think we are importing too much fresh, too many of the types of fresh produce. We recently did an assessment in Dominica which was revealing um, for leafy vegetables, tomatoes, onions, garlic, name it. We imported quite a bit. So what we did, even watermelons, cantaloupes, things that we grow, cabbages, things that we grow. So we are working with the supermarkets. We expanding our import substitution program, not only for white potatoes, but we're going to target vegetables and speak to the supermarkets, have the commercial farmers work with these markets, have some contracts with them, and then we will procure the produce from them through the marketing board, which is next year, have it processed and sell it to the supermarket at a good price and at the right standards. So we're going to try to chew into the values of the produce that we import, things that we can grow. So that help one, it will contribute to your GDP. Two, it help you with your food security and food and nutrition security on island. So that a strategy as well we're looking. But I agree with you, we should not be importing so much of the stuff that we can produce. And the fast speak that as well, and it falls under the umbrella of import substitution, which is very critical for the region. And you would know the wider CARICOM would have that 25 by 25 initiative where we have to reduce our imports by 25% by the year 2025. So the FAST itself is consistent with that. And our own national agricultural policies to speak to that. Yeah, so we're working towards that as well.
But in Grenada, tomatoes is $10 a pound. I'm probably going to get imported tomatoes at a cheaper price. There lies the problem. It's literally $10 a pound for tomatoes. And they don't even look that pretty. I think the sun has been getting to them or something. Because, it's not plump and full the way the imported stuff is. And we also have...
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No problem, Minister. And so we also have that issue there with quality as well. The quality is an issue. For instance, the hotels, that's one of the complaints that you hear from the hotels in Grenada, that the quality, I don't know if it's an excuse because they can source the stuff more cheaply outside of Grenada, but they talk about quality. The quality of what they get is not to their table standard, that kind of thing. So are we also focusing on dealing with that issue?
Yeah, I can see with them. Sometimes farmers would complain that there are no markets, but sometimes they are. But we just need to be more consistent with production because most of the time the supermarkets or hotels would bring in stuff. They would say they can't find it from the farmers when they're in need. Sometimes we have a lot because our production system in the region is seasonal because we have wet and dry season. So off season they can get the quantities. Sometimes a farmer will provide that to them this month, next month they cannot get it. The quality for sure is another issue, but that will depend on the type of production system that we need. So that's why where we move in and we speak to them fast as well, innovation and improve technology in the sector. So that's where we need to introduce greenhouses, or one for better term, protective agriculture, where we can grow these commodities year round because we would have a controlled environment under the greenhouse. And of course, you'll be better able to control the quality. And not just quality by appearance, but we need to speak about the food safety issues as well. One of the outcomes of our last meeting in St. Vincent, we saw the need to introduce a OCS food safety certification system, which can be benchmarked against global gap.
And I saw that, Minister, and one of the things I'm hoping to do is to have you back for a part 2, because you also made decisions on water, food security, nutrition, and all of that, which we will have to speak about in a second segment, because it is a lot to pack in there. And so hold that thought. And thank you so much for joining me on The Narrative. It was a very interesting discussion. The Secretary General, Dr. Didacus Jules, actually Dr. Didika Jules said that it felt like you guys you were holding hands at the last COMA meeting, at the meeting in August in St. Vincent. He felt that cooperation among the ministers, and hopefully
Definitely.
that is going to push the collective attitude that we really need to go forward, given our sizes in various ways. Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. This is The Narrative, speaking there to Roland Royer, who is the Minister of Agriculture in Dominica and the Chairman of the Council of Ministers on Agriculture for the Eastern Caribbean. More when we come back.